I don't know what's more unbelievable, curving bullets or accepting that loom-based assassinations are totally reasonable. On this episode of Moving Panels, we discuss Wanted. Welcome to Moving Panels, the podcast where we discuss movies and TV shows based on, inspired by, and adapted from the world of comic books. I'm your host, Laramy Wells, and joining me today for our continuation on the summer of Mark Millar, I have two co-hosts, and let's be honest, neither one of them would probably survive their first mission in the Fraternity. But they've got great insight, and they would probably give you a good one-liner before they go out. But anyway, first off, from the 80s Flick Flashback Podcast, please welcome Tim Williams.
I'm sorry.
Stop apologizing.
Yeah, every time I kill someone.
Yeah, I'm sorry for apologizing. Yeah. And from Pop Culture Roulette, the man who's definitely not waiting for the loom to tell him what to do, it's Nicholas Pepin.
Yeah, I wouldn't survive the first mission. I'm not gonna lie. I want to be offended by it, but you're right. I wouldn't.
No, I'm ready to get to the second half where we can really tear this movie apart. But let's go ahead and get into it. We are talking about one of, correct me if I'm wrong, this is the first Mark Millar adaptation. This was the first one of his.
I believe it was.
I believe it was, yes. But we are talking about Wanted, which hit theaters on June 27th, 2008. Man, it didn't feel like it had been that long ago, but yep, 2008, 17 years ago. In just a couple of weeks. Directed by, and I am going to butcher this, Timur Bekmambetov. Either one of you have any idea as to whether or not that's the correct pronunciation?
Yeah. No, I have no idea. I've always said it was like Timur Bekmambetov or something, but
yeah.
I just kind of made up how to say the last name. Wasn't anywhere close, but
well, he is a Russian director. He had a lot of success with the Night Watch series, which and supernatural kind of thriller. He was a good pick because that has a lot of the wild visuals, a lot of the action. So it kind of worked to bring him to Hollywood and American audiences with kind of the same thing. The screenplay was written by Michael Brandt, Derek Haas, and Chris Morgan. Now, Brandt and Haas had just come off of their work on the remake of 3:10 to Yuma.
Ooh, that's a good
and then they would later on go on to be a main part of the Chicago franchise. Chicago Fire, Chicago Med.
Okay.
Chicago PD. And then Chris Morgan is pretty much the guy that took over the Fast and Furious franchise from Tokyo Drift and on. Okay. Are you surprised that the guy who wrote?
No, it makes sense.
Yeah,
that makes a lot of sense.
You'd almost think that they exist in the same universe.
They might, quite honestly.
Yeah.
Physics holds about the same reality in both franchises, so.
Anything is possible.
Yeah. All right. Well, if we need to talk about it, let's go ahead and talk about the comic book connections.
This is the comic book connection theme.
The film is inspired by the 2003 to 2004 Image comic miniseries written by Mark Millar and illustrated by J.G. Jones. Again, when I say inspired by, that is the best word I can come up with because I don't open the show by saying based on, inspired by, barely resembles the world of comic books. But the comic centers around a world where supervillains have literally erased all memory of superheroes and now secretly rule everything. The main character, Wesley Gibson, finds out he's the son of the world's greatest assassin, known as the Killer. and is recruited into a society of costumed villains. Millar essentially wrote it as a big love story to villainy. It's offensive and brutally self-aware. And yes, Wesley is modeled to look like Eminem. But when it came to adapting the comic, Hollywood knew the supervillain world was just a bit too much, so the concept was streamlined into an ancient assassin cult. Gone were the colorful costumes, ridiculous powers, kind of, and total moral collapse. What we got instead was more Fight Club meets The Matrix, with a tiny bit of Assassin's Creed thrown in. So, Nicholas, I know you are familiar with the comic. I don't know, Tim, if you've read any of it or looked into any of it, but...
No, I read a little bit of blurb about it. That's about it.
Without giving too much away yet, what are your thoughts about this being considered an adaptation of the comic book Wanted?
I think I'm going to go with what Wikipedia said. Loosely.
Yes.
Loosely adapted. I've been debating in my head all day. I cannot remember if I read the book first or saw the movie first.
I definitely read after I saw the movie.
Because I was getting back into reading comics around the same time that this movie came out. So I don't know which one I did first.
Tim, when did you first see Wanted?
I saw this one in the theaters.
Okay.
Me and my wife went to see it together. So no idea that it was based on a comic book at the time. It was just like a cool action movie. Angelina Jolie, very, like you said, very Matrix-like. And that was still pretty popular at the time. Or, could have been popular at the time.
Did you see it in theaters, Nicholas?
I did, and I knew it was a comic book, so that's where I'm confused.
Yeah. That's understandable. And again, we are talking 17 years ago.
Right,
so,
yeah.
Right.
I don't actually know if I saw this one in theaters. I think it wasn't until it was available to rent is probably when I saw it. More than likely, I would say that was the case, but I really can't remember. I know I saw this either saw it in theaters or I saw it like right when it came out to rent, because I know I saw it very early on. Like it wasn't one that there was a lot of time from its release to when I saw it. But let's get into the cast. So leading the film as Wesley Gibson is James McAvoy. This is before he became Professor X. This was kind of his first take at an action film. Not really known as an action star before this point. But again, the character in the comic is designed to look like Eminem. He's supposed to be very, I don't know what the word, I don't want to say thuggish, because he is kind of a lowlife at the beginning, but I don't know. James McAvoy almost comes across as a little bit more put together, as I think the character is intended to be. What were your thoughts, Nicholas, comparing the two characters?
I mean, that's apples to oranges. I mean, other than them having the same name, it's almost like they were just two entirely different characters. I mean,
yeah.
I know I read that McAvoy auditioned and they turned him down at first because they were looking for something different, and then they decided to change the character to be a little bit more nerdy, and so then they brought him back in, and that's how he got the role.
But see, I don't know if McAvoy necessarily reads nerdy to me either.
No, I don't think so either. I just think he is kind of, he's more apathetic or just kind of worn down, but he never seems completely down and out, just more depressed, I guess is probably a better.
Just more frustrated with life.
Yeah.
All right, and then we have Angelina Jolie as Fox, completely riding the coattails of her Lara Croft run in the Tomb Raider movies. Again, very different from the comic book character, because I didn't mention this in the comic book connections, but Fox in the comics is meant to look like Halle Berry. And yet here we have Angelina Jolie. And it's surprising because she is, I mean, I guess you would say, based off the time, she was the bigger draw than McAvoy was. So she's predominant on like the cover and a lot of the promotional work. But when I went back and watched it, I was like, you know what? She doesn't have like a huge part. Like, yes, she's in it, but she doesn't have a lot of lines. And so I don't know. Although Fox and Nicholas can speak on this, Fox in the comic isn't that big of a character either, but kind of plays the same role. Like, she's the one that kind of trains Wesley, and she's kind of like his connection to all of the inner doing of the fraternity.
It's been a long time since I've read it. I don't know. I read over the Wikipedia, like, just to kind of refresh my mind a little bit. But this is where I get confused on if I read it or saw it first. Yeah. Because like I looked at IMDb today after I watched it, and I was like, wow, I rated it a 7, really? So that's why I think I must have watched it before I read it, because like I remember reading it being like, wow, this is a really good book. This would make a good movie. And then they made this, but
yeah. Because really, other than the characters of Wesley Gibson and Fox, and then just the idea of an association of bad guys. I mean, there are assassins in this, but essentially it's villains, bad guys. Like that really is the end of any connection. Well, a little bit of his father being a member. But we'll get into more of that in the second half. And I will say Fox is a little bit more integral in the twist that happens in the comic versus her not being aware of the twist that happens in the movie, to spoil that a little bit. But let's move on to someone who is not in the comic, and that is Morgan Freeman as Sloane. I mean, I will say, though, come on, it's Morgan Freeman.
Yeah. Right. Another reason why I went to see
every line he delivers is awesome. Even when he's just giving us exposition, like I'm still intrigued.
Right.
Yeah. So and Morgan Freeman as a bad guy, it's amazing how well that works.
Yeah. That was like the big shocker, like when that came out, like Morgan Freeman's playing the bad guy. Like that's kind of the reason why we wanted to see it, just to see him do something different.
Yeah.
So.
There's not really much of any other characters. All the other characters are kind of throwaway. I will mention them.
Yeah.
You got Terrence Stamp as Pekwarski, who I'm just going to say this. I couldn't decide if Terrence Stamp remembered whether his character was blind or not.
Yeah.
Because sometimes it was like, sometimes
scenes.
It was like, okay, yeah, he's blind, and then other times I'm like, I don't think he's blind again anymore. You know what? I meant to look this up and I totally forgot. Hasn't Terrence Stamp played a similar character to this in another movie?
Stick?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Okay, has Terrence Stamp ever played a character similar to this in a good movie?
I don't know. He's been in a lot.
Yeah, but I may have been Stick. I totally forgot he played Stick in Elektra. Oh yeah, that may have been it right there. But of course, he's General Zod to us who actually care. Then we've got British actor Mark Warren and Academy Award winner Common as two other.
Not for his acting, but.
No. As two other members of the fraternity. And then we get Thomas Gretschmann as Cross. And I totally forgot he was in this movie until I saw it.
Yeah.
You know who I'm going with here.
Yep.
Chris Pratt.
Yeah. Good old baby face.
I was watching it and I'm going, wait a minute. Is that Chris Pratt? I completely forgot he was in this movie.
Yeah, right off the bat when they're singing "Happy Birthday" in the office, and they're in the group, and I just go, "Is that Chris Pratt?" And then you find out he's actually a character. Like he's
He's in it more than I remembered.
Yeah,
like when he first showed up, I was like, "Oh yeah, I think I do remember him being like the best friend. But then I thought like after the beginning, you didn't see him again, but he does pop up a couple of times. But yeah. And it's funny because I'm watching the Jurassic World movies to get ready for the new Jurassic World movie that's going to come out. So like I went from watching Wanted babyface Chris Pratt to now him all buff and fighting dinosaurs. So I was like, yeah, he's come a long way.
Yeah, this was definitely the early Parks and Rec days for Chris Pratt.
I think this might have been before he was on
Parks
and Rec. But
could have been. I can't remember what year.
But
it would have been close though.
Right
I've always felt like the first thing I saw Chris Pratt in was Parks and Rec, but now I'm finding out it was Wanted. But I just didn't remember. I just didn't remember.
You just didn't realize who it was. No, Parks and Rec started in 2009, so this was years before. Right there, right before it started.
He didn't. Oh, well, he was in the first couple episodes, but he didn't become a regular character until like almost to season 2.
But and he plays a character that's in the comic. That whole storyline about Wesley's best friend and his girlfriend and all that is straight out of the comic. So there you have it. So I will say this though. I know I don't usually add this. Tim usually puts this in his show, but I found out this film had a $75 million budget, and it grossed over $340 million worldwide.
Yeah, it was a hit. I remember doing very well at the time.
That is not bad for a movie
It was the highest grossing rated R movie for whatever studio for a long time.
Oh yeah, I didn't know that. All right, well, let's go ahead and get into I want to get into talking more about it. So let's talk about watching it or reading it. So is Wanted better as a movie or as a comic? And again, this is kind of a toss-up because you've already heard Nicholas and I say they are very drastically different. So let's get Tim's opinion first. So you're not. I get that you're not familiar with the comic, but if the movie you watched, if you knew it was based on a comic, would you be more interested in reading the comic, or do you think the movie's just fine?
I think now, watching it now, I definitely would like to read the comic just to know kind of, even though I know now it's like very loosely based, but just to see the other side of it. At the time, I probably would have just been happy with the movie because, like I've said this before we started recording, the memory of this movie was much better than the rewatch of it. Like I remembered liking it a lot more when it first came out than I do now. And it's not terrible, but it's, it definitely shows its age now. But yeah.
All right, Nicholas.
I would recommend reading, but with the caveat of it depends on who I'm talking to.
Because you actually, I'm probably gonna say the same things because I literally wrote depends on your taste.
Because it is violent, it is out there, there are storylines and there are characters that I cannot bring up on this podcast.
You are correct.
I read some of the names and I was looking at it. Yeah.
So it is not something that is. It's not for everybody.
No.
It is not a. It's definitely.
But isn't that Mark Millar?
Yes,
though?
absolutely.
And his own brand. Yeah.
So like if I'm talking to somebody who is not of that ilk, I might just be like, yeah, just watch the movie. Don't read the book. But, I mean, it's, the book, I would love to see them do like an Amazon or a Netflix like series based on
maybe animated.
Well, maybe animated. Yeah, I mean, you could probably try to with technology and where we stand today, I think you could probably do it. I do look back at 2008 and go, there's no way they could have done that story live action and made it into the theaters. People would have been like, you can't put this out there.
Yeah. But now with stuff like The Boys.
Right, yeah.
The Boys, yeah.
Which
and Invincible, yeah.
Which I'm just going to go ahead and say when I read the graphic novel, The Boys really came to mind as I was reading it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I said very similar thing. It depends on your taste, because if you want, again, that Mark Millar style of, chaotic and very, very adult, almost just in your face. Go with the comic. But if you just want a good action film that's got really good visuals and resemblance of character arc, then you could go with the movie. But I think, like we've said, they're so different. You can really kind of enjoy both because there's not much overlap. So yeah, I kind of agree with Nicholas. Like, yeah, read the comic if you don't mind the very, very graphic nature of a Mark Millar story. Which, if you've seen The Kingsman or Kick-Ass, some of his other adaptations, if you've seen those, that was later, so they got away with a little bit more in some of those. Mm-hmm. So you kind of know where this is going. So yeah, there you go. You can watch it, you can read it. You'd get a different experience either way.
What seems to be the problem, pal?
There's just so much pain in the world, so many issues. I don't think I can bear it.
Hell, friendo, it sounds like you could use a dose of pop culture roulette.
Pop culture roulette? What's that? Some sort of pop culture themed podcast or something?
That's right, sonny boy. When hope seems far, dive into some PCR.
But I already get my entertainment news from Variety.
Huh, that's pretty good. If you're a chucklehead, PCR gives you news you need, condensed, unfiltered, and raw, from three nerds who know a little something about something.
Wow, okay, sign me up.
That's the spirit. Pop Culture Roulette. New episodes every Monday, available on all major podcast directories.
All right, well, let's take a trip around the spinner rack, and we're going to start off with a speech bubble, your favorite quote or a quote that you just really liked, and I'm just going to go ahead and say it, guys. If you need to say a curse word, I'll bleep you out.
I know. It was tough to find one.
Yeah, because there's one that I really wanted to do, but I didn't. But Nicholas, how about you? What was your favorite quote?
I knew what show I was coming on, so I combed through and I found one where you won't have to bleep me. You're not an assassin, Sloan. You're just a thug who can bend bullets.
That's probably the one line that stood out to me. Like, ooh, that was a good line. Like, that's the only one that really kind of landed for me. You want me to go next?
Yeah, go ahead.
Even though he took mine. The other one is, and this is, there's only one word, and I just won't say it, but you can bleep it anyway. There are people, beautiful people, you just wish they could see you in a different setting, a different place, instead of where you are, what you've become. But most of all, you wish you weren't for wishing for things that'll never change.
I really wanted to. There's nothing. The first thing that always comes to my mind when I think about this movie is hearing Morgan Freeman saying, "Otherwise, shoot this."
Yes. Yeah.
After he's explained his whole plan and plot and everything, he just goes, "Otherwise, shoot this."
Yeah.
And
I think I remember when it came out, one of my friends says, "I can't believe they got Morgan Freeman to say that. Is that the first time he said that?" I was like, "It might be. I don't know."
It's just
use that word, so
yeah. I don't know if it would be the first, but it's definitely it's fun to hear him say it. I will say that. Mm-hmm. I did decide to go with the line that they say of kill one, save 1,000. Mm-hmm. And I just went with that one because it sums up the whole fraternity. The whole in this movie, the whole idea of what they're doing. It's kind of like Minority Report. We're gonna stop somebody and hope that by stopping them, it doesn't cause. Mm-hmm. They think what they're doing is good. So that's what I went with. But again, Nicholas, if you have one,
no,
go right ahead.
No, I try to. I want to be good. I want to stay in good standing.
All right, well, let's go ahead and move into our moving panel, our favorite scene, iconic scene, a scene we felt came straight out of the comic book, even though most of it didn't.
No scene did.
So, Tim, what do you got for a moving panel?
There's a few. The one that stands out to me the most is the training sequence on the train where she ducks under when they're in the bridge or whatever. So that sequence, the scene where he's trying to bend the bullet around the
pig
slab of meat. Yeah, the pig. So like some of the training stuff felt very, comic book-ish and very not tropish, but like what I would expect in this type of movie. I do. I don't know if it's comic book, but the whole idea of him putting bombs on the rats was just, kind of fun. Like I was like, I'm sure it's not in the comic, but that was a pretty smart way for him to get in without them seeing him and blowing everything up before he got in. But that whole sequence of him running through, like this is pre-John Wick, where he's just running through and just killing everything.
Yeah.
He shoves the gun into the guy's eye and keeps shooting to the back of his head, which I was like, okay, now I feel like I'm watching the first Kingsman movie, which of course is very Mark Millar, or Mark Miller. So yeah, those are the scenes that jumped out at me for sure.
I mean, there's nothing from the book to the movie, so I enjoyed.
So again, we go with more like your favorite scene.
That's so. Yeah. I enjoyed the car chase scenes, although I will be bringing one of those back up later.
I'm sure there's a lot that we're probably going to bring up later.
The one.
Weird science could have
been the one scene that Tim referenced at the beginning with I'm sorry, like him managing to flip the car to assassinate the Russian guy, like that. I mean, there was some cool visuals.
Yeah, of course.
But I enjoyed the those were probably my that whole car chase scene at the beginning.
Yeah, and I think that opening, flat out opening scene.
Oh yeah,
that shot of the guy crashing through the window, and you get the slow mo of all of the glass shards like outlining his face. I honestly forget that came from this movie. Like I've seen that like on other things like montages and whatnot, and I forget that came from this movie. But even the shot of the bullet like coming out of his forehead. And then of course they do that again at the end. But yeah, I there's a lot out of this one, but I picked that opening scene, the rooftop, him taking out everybody, and again that crashing through the glass, and then the retracing the bullet back to find Cross, shot him, which again, that is roughly the beginning of the comic book. It's not 100% the same, but it's roughly the same. But I think it told you exactly like this is what type of movie you were about to watch. Like this is how over the top it's going to be. This is the effects you're going to see. This is the level of violence you're going to see. So it kind of set the stage. All right, I'm going to let y'all choose. Do we want to go ahead and jump into the weird science? Or do we want to talk a little bit more about since I just brought it up, the similarities and differences between the movie and the comic? Because part of me wonders if we talk about the similarities and differences, and you hear from me and Nicholas, part of me thinks that might make some of the weird science make a little bit more sense, or might remind some people. What do you think, Nicholas?
Let's do the similarities then.
All right, so let's talk about the few similarities that we have. So we do have where it opens with the death of an amazing assassin, killer, whatever you want to say. And again, we are spoiling things right here. In the comic book, it actually is Wesley's father who is killed. I will talk more about that in a minute. But it actually is his father that is killed. They do the same thing except it's when one of the guys are dying, he says, "We're just the decoy." And then he is shot in the head. But then in this one, we see the death of the guy we are to believe is Wesley's father, only to later find out that his father was the killer who was actually trying to protect him and all of that. But like I said, similar kind of setup. And of course, Wesley is, he's a miserable office worker who just feels like nothing goes right in his job. There's a lot of repetitiveness in the comic that I wish we saw a little bit more of in the movie, about the way his life would go. Like I've already talked about, he had the cheating girlfriend cheating on him with his best friend. We have a secret organization in both cases, except in one, it's a team of assassins, and the other, it's villains who straight up rule the world. Like, it's not just they're a secret organization. Like, they rule the world. They can get away with doing whatever they want, and it would be covered up. Not a single person would be aware. Which, like I said, is kind of leading me into the weird science a little bit. Because in the comic book, they explain we can do whatever we want. No one will ever know. In both cases, we do have where Wesley undergoes a transformation into a killer assassin. And, of course, embracing the power. I will say there's a slight difference in the comic book. He embraces it probably a little bit more quickly, as well as embraces it a little bit more fully than he does in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
But that pretty much ended the similarities for me. Nicholas, can you think of any that I might be missing?
No, because I mean, there's the whole subplot of like was it magic or some sort of event that the supervillains basically figured out a way to like take all the superheroes down at once.
Yeah.
And then they just like basically just took over and made it, and then made everybody forget that there were superheroes, or that the superheroes even forgot themselves they were superheroes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And again, they have a way that they can kill anybody, do anything, and it would just get covered up. They split up the world into, what was it, 5 sections? Because wasn't it 5 families?
I think that's what it was.
Yeah, and then of course the guy who ended up with control of Australia just gets ticked off, and so he's the villain of the comic.
Yeah,
I will say that that gets a little, I don't know what word I'm looking for here, but it gets a little confusing into exactly how everything works in terms of the background to the world that exists in the Wanted comic. So I will say the movie does benefit from, at least they don't have to give too much exposition. They kind of base it in at least our modern world and just have this secret organization. But yeah, that gets us into the differences. Again, in the comic, like I said, very similar to me to like The Boys, because we have superheroes and supervillains. Like, they wear costumes. They have superpowers. There is a character that I believe Nicholas was alluding to. I'm not going to say much about him, but he's a Clayface-like character. He's just not made of clay. And so they do have a lot more of it feels like you're living in a comic book-like world, which, of course, this movie takes all of that away and gives us just the secret society of assassins.
Who, some of them have kind of superpowers.
Yeah, which again, that's why I said I didn't know how much we wanted to go ahead and get into the weird science versus talking about this, because it's going to kind of all blend together. But we'll get to that in a minute. Another difference is I'll just go ahead and say it, the twist. So in the comic book, the twist ends up being that Wesley's father did not die. That he's actually been kind of running this whole plan with Fox the entire time to get Wesley to become the person he's supposed to be. And then in the comic, Wesley's father actually has Wesley kill him and says, once you've killed me, everything will be finished. You'll have all the power, you'll have all the money, you'll have, everything that I had. And so that's actually what and Wesley does. Wesley kills him. Whereas in the movie, of course, we end up finding out that Wesley's father is the guy he's hunting, Cross, which honestly, this is one of those that once you know that, when you go back and watch it, it's almost like, how could you not have figured that out? Because it's clearly obvious he's not trying to kill him at any point in the movie.
Right.
So I get that. So yeah, we got the big twist and the differences. What do you think about the difference in the twist and the stuff with his father?
Again, it's been so long since I've read it. It's hard for me to remember everything. I just remember he had to kill his father because he had to step up, and then he wanted to quit or not quit, but I don't.
Yeah, they do this thing in the comic where after he kills his father, Fox is, saying it's like, all right, well, you've got, everything. You're gonna become one of the leaders of the 5 families. You've got all this money, blah blah blah, and then he does start saying like, I don't know if it's all worth it. He goes, if I want to live this life, if I want to blah 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 blah, and it all sounds legit. And then Fox says, like, you're kidding, right? And he goes, absolutely. And I didn't talk about this as a similarity. The way the movie and the book ends is kind of similar. Where in the movie, we get the death of Sloane, and then it traces the bullet back, and we see Wesley, and he turns and looks at the camera and says, like, what have you effing done, or whatever the exact line is. The comic kind of ends the exact same way, of him screaming at the reader. And he says, I've actually got it right here in front of me. He says, this is my face while I'm blanking you in the blank. Obviously couldn't say that in the movie, but
right,
kind of that same feel of, I decided to take control of my life. What are you doing? What have you done? Because, yeah, he even said, like, he's talking to the reader at the end. He says, you're just going to close this book and buy something else to fill that big empty void we've created in your life. So, yeah. So him breaking the fourth wall, calling you out, saying, what have you done lately? It's different, but at the same time, it's kind of similar.
Yeah.
So, yeah, they share a skeleton. There is kind of the idea behind it, but everything else is just very different. The comic is a violent fantasy about embracing the villainy, the dark side, whereas the movie kind of more is he's the hero, and it's more about seizing your destiny and choosing to be something else. But I think those differences lead to a lot of stuff that led to the weird science. So Let's go ahead and get into it. First off, I'm just going to go ahead and say it. The loom. I wish they would have given some explanation. Like how, why, who figured out that the yarn was predicting fate.
Right.
Like who would have thought to look at how they overlapped and realized it was binary code. Especially considering that this is supposed to have been thousands of years ago. I had a lot of questions when it comes to the loom. Like, again, I've always said when it comes to this weird science, build me a world, and if you're going to defy physics, if you're going to, break common sense, that's fine as long as you've given me an acceptable way to believe it.
Right.
If you had just done something like explaining that this loom was originally the loom of Merlin, or it was, something that one of the, like, I don't know, get biblical about it and say that it was something about an apostle who realized it, or I don't know, give me something, because you gave me nothing. It was just this old group of weavers who decided to become assassins.
Yeah, that made no sense. We've made this sweater, now we're going to go kill that guy.
Yeah. And then if of course the big reveal is that Sloane is manipulating the code, why explain how the code works to anyone?
Right.
Why not just destroy the loom? And why give them the actual piece of cloth that would reveal your secret? Like, there's no way Wesley would have figured that out if it wasn't for he had the piece of cloth that actually spelled out Sloane's name. Which I find it interesting. It apparently, when that's revealed and Sloane is saying, your name popped up. Right. It is their full name with their code name and everything.
Right. Yeah.
But Sloane was only Sloane.
Sloane.
It's Sloane. I also do like, though, they hid the fox's real name. Like when he hands it to the gunsmith, which is Common's character, I didn't write it down, but it does show his full name. Like it says first name, the gunsmith, last name.
Right.
But then when he hands it to Fox, he goes, your name, and we don't get to see what her actual name was. I found that kind of interesting. But yeah, like his plan, it was like a bad James Bond villain. Like, I'm going to tell you everything so that you can use all of this against me.
Yeah, like even when I was watching it, of course, knowing how it ends probably helps you see this a little bit better. But I guess maybe because he seemed like such a loser at the beginning, but then as he's starting to learn, he becomes like so diligent and so determined to master everything that it does be like, why would you tell him why this works? Why would you keep bringing him into this room where the loom is for him to try to figure things out? Like and there's a few times where like Morgan Freeman's face is kind of like, what have I done? Like he's already starting to see that maybe the plan isn't going to work the way he wanted it to. And maybe I was reading into it because I knew the ending, but
yeah,
it did.
But
it
no,
did
I
cross
agree
my
with
mind
what
this
you're
time
saying.
watching it.
Like they clearly show that Wesley, like, really studies. You know, they have him in that library, you know, studying all of what eventually be his father's, you know, work and learn stuff. So yeah, it just made no sense to me as to why you would not just explain how, you know, the loom works, but you literally taught him how to read it.
And taught him how to do it correctly.
Yeah.
It wasn't like...
Yes.
Right.
Which made no sense because that whole scene even starts with, you know, this is the loom room or whatever he calls it. He goes, this will be the first and last time you're ever in this room.
But we see him in there like multiple times after that.
Well, no, I don't think you do.
No,
I think
that room. I got
no. I think the loom, you see him like trying to catch that little thing. That's just one of the looms from where they actually make fabric. Which they never even, that's another thing we could add to the weird science. Like they never explain, because he was like, oh, this is a front. And Morgan Freeman was like, no, this is what we actually do. And I'm just going, no, it's still a front. Like that's literally the definition of a front.
Yeah.
Is you have a business, a legit business that helps you hide your secret business. That's the definition of a front. So yeah, I had issues with that. Y'all ready to get into the curving bullets? Let's talk about.
Sure. I mean that's like one of the main premises of the movie.
Yeah, and I know MythBusters actually specifically did this.
Yeah.
As to whether or not you could curve a bullet. It's cool. Yes. It's iconic. That's probably one of the main things people remember about this movie.
Oh yeah,
they curve a bullet.
Yeah.
And I can accept, again, people have special ability. And so, okay, can you explain to me why whipping your arm from one side to the other makes the bullet curve in the complete opposite direction that you have flung your arm? And what makes it start straight, then turn? Wouldn't it make more sense that it it comes out and curves, not that it heads in a direction, curves, and then ends up back in that same direction? Y'all understand what I'm saying?
Yeah. But there's no physics in this world.
Yeah. And you can't even make the argument of, well, comics. Because that's not a thing in the comic.
Comic book either, yeah.
It's not.
Yeah, I had the MythBusters episode on my list, but it was really funny that the MythBusters decided to do the episode because like people were so dumb to be like, no, this could happen.
Yeah, you could really do it. Yeah.
You could really do it.
It makes
you
sense.
move your hand. If you move your hand fast enough, no, you moron.
It's like throwing a
That's not
curveball.
how
It just didn't make sense to me.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
Either way, it's impossible.
Oh, no, I get it. But like I said, I'm willing to accept, which goes back into those similarities and differences. If it even was a thing in the comic book, I'd be more willing to accept it because in the comic book, there are people with actual superpowers. Like, there are comic book characters. So having a guy that his ability happens to be that he can curve a bullet, okay, I'll accept it.
Right.
But this movie to just say, there are a few people in the world who can do it.
And then everybody in that room can do it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and then let's get into the superpower kind of aspect of it. So are we to assume that he has a superpower? Not just because of being able to curve the bullet, but the whole heart rate thing, which I'm sorry. If your heart's beating 400 times in a minute or whatever they say it does, if it's getting to that much of a heart rate, like I need more explanation because he's definitely not human.
Right. Right.
It's because it's making so much adrenaline, it makes you be able to fly.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because they just explain it as you can slow down time. But yeah, dude at the beginning could all of a sudden run like the Flash and then leap, But Nicholas and I talked about Daredevil, the Ben Affleck movie, and how Ben Affleck as Daredevil had the ability to jump from one end of a street to another, even though that's not really an ability Daredevil has.
Right.
But yeah, and then the fact that dude at the beginning is not actually Wesley's father. And then I think we're to assume that even Fox has the ability to slow down time.
Mm-hmm.
That she had, it's kind of implied that she can also do that too. Like, again, do they have superpowers? Just tell me they do, and I'm fine with it.
Mm-hmm.
Stop trying to give me this logical explanation for why they can do what they can do. It just,
which leads me to the healing bath with the wax.
Yes. I had that one on here as well.
Yeah, it was, once again, when I saw it the first time, it was cool. Watching it again, I'm like, this makes no sense. The biggest issue with that is, how many times did Wesley get shot, stabbed, all kinds of beat up, and heals just fine? He shoots the rat guy, I forgot his name, I'm sorry, which looked like maybe in his side, was it a fatal wound? And yet they have him laying next to the baths, not in a bath trying to heal him, but next to the bath, trying to bring him back to life. And I was like, this makes no sense.
Which leads me into another question I had about that character. Whose side is he on?
Yeah. I kind of felt like he was working with Wesley's real dad and a double agent, maybe, he was the mole inside.
The rat, if you will.
Giving him information. Yeah. Yeah.
Because, it feels like as he's dying, he's giving that big clue of...
Yeah.
Yeah. And then
because his father had the idea with the rats.
He has the whole details as to how to make it work.
Yeah. That's why I figured he was working with the dad secretly as well. So
yeah. Any thoughts, Nicholas?
I mean, that leads me to one of my weird science things. You've got a building full of trained assassins who couldn't shoot the rats.
Yeah,
they were making Wesley shoot the wings off of flies, but these men and women were unable to shoot rats.
Yeah, especially with the mass of rats there were. You would hit some, but that even goes back to what Tim was talking about. When he's running through the factory, this is an entire room of assassins. Are you telling me he is so good that you get the one guy, random dude too, you hadn't seen him at all in the movie, who gets the one shot on Wesley.
Yes.
Like shoots him in the
Yes.
shoulder.
Right.
Which I wasn't even 100% sure if Wesley then retaliated and killed him. It looked like all he did was break his leg and then keep going. I will say there were some cool moments of that, of him killing people and then grabbing their gun as they're falling.
Yeah. Oh,
Like
yeah.
that was pretty impressive. But still, yeah, these are all supposed to be trained killers.
Mm-hmm.
And the only one who is really a fight for Wesley at all is the dude with the knives.
Yeah, the butcher.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
That was it. So I agree with that one. The only other one I have is I'm curious what y'all's thoughts were. Why does the fox choose to end her own life at the end?
Well, I think it was for her because she felt she was following the code, and if the following fate, and if fate said that she was supposed to die before, then she doesn't need to go on living. Like there was a reason why her name came up. But then again, why would you believe what Sloane is telling you that your name was on the list?
True.
Been manipulating it the whole time. So
yeah.
Yeah, that was her like believing so strongly in the code that because her name came up,
she had to die.
That she had to die.
Mm-hmm.
But again, like Tim just said, Sloane just admitted to lying.
Mm-hmm.
Like, so wouldn't you go, well, you're lying about this too?
I mean, wouldn't you think he clearly has a paper, whatever you want to say, made for each one of them?
Each one of them.
So that in case, just like he did with Cross, in case, he needed to do one, he'd already have one made up. It's like, all right, here's your next mission. You got to kill this guy.
And one thing I wish they would have given us, like at that point when you find out, I guess that probably wasn't time, but like the people that Wesley did kill, like who were they? Were they really random people? Were they enemies of Sloane? Like we never really understood why those people got killed, right?
True. Yeah.
Because the loom decided they had to go.
Yeah. The loom
Sloane decided. That's why I was like, yeah.
Yeah, but we still don't know why. Like we still right,
exactly,
like that business guy who's his first target. Like, we don't know. Yeah, again, that just goes back to my first one about the loom. Like, if you either explain to me kind of like the way Angelina Jolie, the Fox, does explain it. Like, I ended up finding out that this guy who murdered my father, was supposed to have been killed earlier, which means my father would not have been killed. And all this, multiverse sliding doors. But yeah, like, why can't we have that explanation? Like, you're going to kill this guy because it is believed that he will do this, or, again, more like Minority Report.
Yeah. Better logic in that one.
Yeah, and even if it was Sloane making up the name of the dude, why? Like, what was it about that guy that Sloane wanted him dead?
Gotta send him to kill somebody today. Here's a random name. Here you go.
Just flipping through the phone book.
Gotta keep him busy. So.
Yeah.
Nathan R. Johnson.
All right. One thing that I want to talk about before we wrap things up is this is Mark Millar, or Mark Millar, and I firmly believe that he always has a message he is trying to convey, some sort of commentary on politics, or just a social commentary, something. So, what do you think Millar is trying to say with Wanted? Now, Tim is a little bit at a disadvantage here because obviously he saw the movie, which was not really Mark Millar's work. But Nicholas, I'll let you go first here. Like, what do you think he's trying to say in his storytelling for Wanted?
There's some. His obsession with making villains out to be the hero, or is evident in a lot of things. But yeah. I think this one is more. I think in the book and in the very briefly in the beginning of the movie, just the banality of working in an office and living within that structure. And like, being more free to kind of do what you want, or, just live your life more open than just, working as a 9-to-5, wage slave, I think is part of it.
Yeah. I think and I think both the movie and the comic do this. But yeah, like you're saying, it's rejecting the norm and embracing your individualism. Whatever that might be. Now, obviously, in the comic book, it's more of, embracing the monster within, the killer within you, and how, sometimes people just, I will say more so in the comic than the movie, it's being able to just embrace that dark side and pretty much having permission to be terrible. We get that little bit of it in the movie where he finally yells at his supervisor, and then he ends up hitting his Chris Pratt with the keyboard, which just coincidentally the letters spell out F-U. I did love how the U as though it's his tooth and not a key off the keyboard.
Right.
But kind of that idea. I will say the movie kind of tends more to be almost like a self-help arc. Like, just learn to take control of your life. Don't let someone else tell you what to do, and don't, get rid of, like Nicholas saying, get rid of that toxic workspace and focus on your own mental health and, whatever your destiny might be. Like, so a little different in the way they're telling that, but that's my thought. You got any thought, Tim, just within the movie itself?
No, I was going to say, like, I think I'm in line with what you were saying. I was thinking, the thing I got was like, we make our own fate. Like, fate doesn't really decide what happens to us. We create our own fate through our own, making our own choices and not letting someone else tell us what to do and who to be. I think that was what I felt like it was trying to say, for sure.
All right, well, let's get to it in our Mark Millar series that we're kicking off here with our first review on Wanted. So, final decision, time to decide, is this a bag it, stack it, or trade it? Nicholas, what say you?
I'm going to go stack it. It doesn't hold up. I mean, but it's still watchable. I mean, it was still a fun watch. It was enjoyable. I mean, it was just under 2 hours.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it was enjoyable. It held my attention.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't really feel like it dragged. But, for those of us that saw it in the theaters and haven't really seen it since, like, it maybe isn't as much fun as I thought it was. But, apparently I bought it at some point. It had like the used DVD. Like, I must have bought it from one of the video Blockbuster or one of the home mom and pop video stores that were closing down, because it had like a $1.99 or a $2.99 or what tag on it. So I must have bought it at some point, going, I like this movie, but it's been a long time since I've watched it. So, like, I'd watch it again.
Yeah. Tim, how about you?
Yeah, it's a stack it for me as well. A lot of the same reasons that Nicholas mentioned, because it is rewatchable. It doesn't hold up as well. It's dated. It has its dated moments. Like, the music, of course, is like that grunge, like grunge pop mixed together that was very popular at that time. But yeah, I bought the digital version in like a set of like the greatest action movies of the 2000s or whatever, and so it was in that set. So, but it's not one that I'm gonna want to watch a lot, but I will, just something mindless, and like if I'm in the mood for something like Fast and Furious 6 or 7, where it's like the higher the number they go, the more ludicrous it becomes. Pardon my pun.
Yeah, I was about to say they actually added Ludacris to the cast.
Yeah. So, but yeah, it's stack it for me.
Wait, is Common in any of the Fast and Furious movies?
No.
He's okay. I was about to say.
And I was gonna say, I want to think this was like Common's first movie role too, wasn't it?
I don't know. I didn't look into it.
Yeah, I think it was early in his.
I can't remember, because I know he was doing Hell or High Water. Hell. That Western show.
Yeah.
Hell on Wheels.
Hell on Wheels. Yeah, I know he was doing that around the same time.
Okay. Yeah, I know he was in Smoking Aces, but that was like 2009, I think. So, but anyway.
Yeah, no, I agreed with both of you. It's a stack it. It's a fun movie, but yeah, it doesn't have the depth to really make me want to bag it. I definitely agree with both of y'all. I don't know if it was at the time, 2008, 2009, or if it was the age, we all were.
Yeah.
But yeah, when you
Probably
first,
mix of both.
yeah, first watching this movie, I was like, man, that movie was awesome. And then, you watch it the second time and you're just like, eh. Yeah, I would rewatch it. Absolutely. It's a solid rewatch, but it is one of those, turn your brain off.
Yeah.
Just watch the action, watch the bullets fly, watch the gore, watch Angelina Jolie get out of the wax. And that was the draw of every guy at the time. But yeah, it's definitely a watch it. But let's move on to recommendation. Is there another movie maybe instead of Wanted, or maybe, hey, if you liked Wanted, you might also want to check this out. Same thing goes for if you've got a comic in mind, without just telling them to go read the Wanted comic. So, Tim, you got anything for a recommendation?
Yeah, I was thinking about this while I was watching it. I think we've already kind of mentioned it already. I think I would prefer The Matrix over this one, because I think this was trying to kind of pull some of that same cool effects and bending thing, bending bullets and those kind of things. So
almost 10 years later. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, so this is, I would probably go from watching this, I want to watch something a little bit better, and I would probably rewatch The Matrix and kind of see a better version of, a story that's not totally similar, but there are, it is our hero's journey type of story. So, I'm thinking Matrix for me.
All right, Nicholas.
I'm gonna stay in the same Timur Burger. And I'm gonna recommend his earlier movie, Night Watch and Day Watch.
Okay. Yeah.
I mean, you gotta watch it subtitled. So you gotta do a little bit more commitment. Having watched both, I think I watched Night Watch before I watched this. I think I was aware of him. Night Watch was really cool.
It is, yes. I haven't seen Day Watch, but I have seen Night Watch.
I have seen Day Watch. I don't remember it as well, but I seem to remember really liking both of them. It's so, they're out there. It's a different, visually, similar style, but story-wise, it's completely different, But I'm gonna, it's really cool stuff. And then I'm gonna recommend anytime I can watch an episode of Mythbusters,
Yeah. I had a hard time coming up with a comic for this one without it being just another Mark Millar work. But I did. This actually took me back, because just the year earlier, there is a kind of very similar movie. And I'm curious, do y'all remember Shoot 'Em Up?
Yeah,
with Clive Owen.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a very similar movie. Just the wild, over the top, shoot 'em up type movie. Where
hence the title.
Yeah, but that's what I was about to get into with with that movie, though, clearly having just that tongue pressed firmly against the cheek. It knows what it is.
Right.
Where I do think this movie doesn't fully know what it is.
Yeah.
I think the Shoot 'Em Up definitely knew how over the top, off the wall type of movie it was. So yeah, if you like the type of action that you got in this movie, I would recommend, if you've never seen Shoot 'Em Up, that came out in 2007, the year before, check that one out. But there you have it, our first review of Mark Millar in our summer series. Next week we'll have a one-shot discussing a little bit more of that social commentary that Mark Millar is known for in his work. And then we've still got to cover Jupiter's Legacy and both of the Kick-Ass movies. So stay tuned for all of that. But that's going to wrap it up for today. Thank you, Tim. Thank you, Nicholas, for joining me and surviving the fraternity. Don't forget to subscribe. Leave us a review. Tell us what you think about this episode. Tell us what comic adaptation you want us to cover. Also, check out our website, movingpanelspodcast.com. We also have a TeePublic site where you can buy some Moving Panel swags to support what we hope is one of your favorite podcasts. But we'll go ahead and wrap things up for today. For Moving Panels, I'm Laramy Wells, and I'll see you on the other side of the page.
Divide. From print to screen, the legends stand.